Welcome to the WASP, WeAreSuperman podcast. From the mind of a former 320-pound alcoholic turned ultra runner, sober warrior, plant-based human, and happiness guru. Get ready for the deep sea perspective.
Shit, we're rolling.
Dive right in.
That's it, man.
A hard entry.
There will be no tip. Just the whole thing. That might be the episode.
Going sideways.
That might be the name of the episode right there. I am in the hive with my good friend, my buddy, my kindred spirit in so many ways, Mishka Shubaly. What's up, man?
What's up, Dave? Good to see you, man.
It's good to see you, and you're in Colorado.
Yeah, it's so weird being back here. Because I lived here from 17 to 21, which were not particularly good or productive years for me. And I lived right here in Lafayette.
Did you? Right
yeah,
here?
Man.
Oh shit!
They
run you out of town?
Yeah, I worked at the Sonic Burger. We lived like right back up against Centaurus High School.
Oh yeah.
And so it's just, I just driving in here, I have so many memories of like rolling around, with my mom driving in a little 85 Nissan Sentra.
How cool is that?
And I was just, hungover and bored and like, Mom, can't you see my life is ending? At 17.
No shit. Oh man, I knew you had roots out here, but I didn't know they were like right here in my backyard. That's amazing.
Yeah,
That's awesome, man. Yeah, I was just out there crazy. My twins are 16 now.
That's so weird.
And like all this stuff is starting to happen. Like I'll go, they actually don't go to Centaurus, they go to Thornton, but I'll meet them there and I'll start meeting them places and they're driving there. And so I like show up. The other day, I'll give you a great thing. I love horror movies. My kids love horror movies. I transferred that to them, like any good father should.
Yeah.
And so we've been waiting for the Insidious 4 movie to come out. And we met them there, and it was this really cool picture because the movie theater at Flatirons Mall is right by this bar, the tavern that I used to go to all the time back in the day. And I just pulled through that parking lot, ripped so many times. And so anyway, I drive up to the movie theater and then I see them. They're parked in a car just laughing hysterically. Mm-hmm. And I didn't even want to stop and pull up and end the moment. I just wanted to watch them laughing and doing whatever they were. And
that's one of the things that I was thinking about when I was driving here is that, I had definitely had a lot of hard times in New York too, but I was able to write over those memories or to rewrite that stuff, so like a lot of the corners where I was like, oh, I remember throwing up here or about to throw up here or shitting my pants here or whatever, crawling home from the bar. Those were also corners that then I remember like, oh man, I remember getting back from doing my first 10 miler and like stopping to do push-ups there because I was like still feeling it, So I was able to rewrite a lot of those like really hard memories with better shit. And I've never been able to do that with Colorado. I've never sort of come back here in triumph or had, so it's what exists now is still for me very much the angry teenager landscape,
That's interesting, man, because
I was thinking about you because like, this is, you are still in your old stomping grounds. And I think about the burden of being from a place, being of a place, having a home, because that's not an experience really that I've had. But this is where you went off the fucking rails too.
It is, man. It's interesting because it's the ultimate, like every starting line's a finish line. Like every time I finish an ultra, I find myself back at the starting line, right? And in many ways, Colorado is that for me too, because this is where I lost myself.
Yeah.
But it's also where I found myself. And interestingly, to that point, like when I go back to New York, I don't have any bad memories there. I mean, there's a couple times I had too much to drink, but pretty pedestrian shit. But recently, a couple years ago, I went back to LA and I hadn't been there in a long time. And all I had there were good drinking memories. Like here, when I go to places here, I think, oh, I'm so glad I'm not there because that guy was a fuck up. But when I walked by the bars like, the Rainbow Room and Sunset Strip and all that, I hadn't lost myself yet.
Yeah.
Did you ever find any of those places on the road, or did you just shit the bed everywhere?
No, I went out with my buddy last night, and had that thing of like, I mean, it's been super nice here, but I still had that experience of the sort of like cold Colorado wind blowing through my jeans, and it's a very specific cold, and it's like tied into
It's like
a memory
meatloaf reference right there, man.
of. It's very tied into my memories of being here when I was like 20, 21 and sort of like sneaking into bars and stuff like that. And, I mean, I wanted to die here.
Oh.
And so just that sensation very much like it brought me right back. But also this morning when I woke up in bed, I was thinking, we were at a brewery that used to sponsor me in whatever, 2002, 2003. And I woke up like with the memory of the taste of that beer, like on my tongue. And I was just like, oh man, I miss that shit so much, and that was rough because I usually don't miss drinking. I don't wake up thinking about, I don't wake up with a positive drinking memory, but it was just like, I could taste it. And I was like, so yeah, caution.
It's heavy.
Caution.
Yeah.
Be careful, man. That's the yellow light right there.
It really is, man. And that's exactly the way I felt. Like here, I think, I don't know, I hesitate to say my guard's up because I really don't have a guard anymore. You know what I mean? Like I just, like you said, man, I'm just on cruise control. But being back there in those places in LA, man, all of a sudden it was like, oh shit! Like I hadn't had a good memory associated with drinking in a long time, and it didn't make me want to go drink, but it was just like, this is weird.
Yeah. I don't feel particularly sober when I travel. And I wonder if you have the same experience, because I mean, it's like I'm not waking up in the same place. I'm not waking up at the same time. A lot of times I have that moment where I wake up where I'm like, where am I?
Right.
And I'm not, I'm usually not eating right, or at least not eating the same things at the same times, and not exercising when I would normally, you know what I mean? The sort of the routine that you do at home that anchors you to this earth and sort of anchors you in your own sobriety. That's gone when you're on the road. Yeah,
man, I don't know. I'm at the risk of making myself sound more spiritual than I am. Like, I think I'm so focused on living in my own space and in my own head that I don't think about it, man. I really do not differentiate being on the road to being home until I get home. You know what I mean? Like when I walked through the door yesterday from LA, and I was there for like 4 or 5 days. And when I got here and I walked in, I was like, oh yeah, this is comfortable. I like this here, you know.
Yeah.
And this is where I'm happy, but I don't know, man. Like I just go about the day, get it done, get my runs in, do my work, realize that it's all just a fucking dream. It's a second chance, a third chance, 100th chance, whatever you want to call it. But man, I feel like, I don't know, man, in a weird way, I feel like I don't want to say I gamed the system, but like I got another chance, and I'm just happy I'm here. I'm not spending a whole lot of time.
Yeah. Well, you and I also, we have very different relationships to sobriety.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, it's your bread and butter, and it's your, I think in a lot of ways you've taken it as, this is your role in life, as, this is what you were born to do, is to be sober, to embrace other sober people, to embrace
fucking
sobriety.
Trip that is, huh?
Yeah, it's weird. and for me, man, like, I'll be honest, I'm so bored with I'm bored with sobriety. I'm bored with my own sobriety. I'm bored, I'm still grateful, but I'm just bored.
Let's talk. I want to talk about that actually.
Yeah, okay, let's do it.
Let's just back up for a second.
Okay.
Some of my listeners won't know who you are off the top of their head.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Worldwide sensation, world touring Mishka Shubaly, but let's give them the 5 minutes. Like what? Where'd you start? How'd you get here?
My name is Mishka Shubaly. I'm an alcoholic. I know, right? On this podcast,
that kind of meeting.
I started drinking when I was a teenager. Drank pretty hard until I was 32. I was living in New York City, and then I got sober without AA or rehab, and went on to become a best-selling writer through Amazon. I have 6 best-selling Kindle singles. Got a book deal out of that. The book is called I Swear I'll Make It Up to You. I am nearly 9 years sober at this point. I am a musician, so I tour a lot, spend as much time in bars as a lot of drunks do. And
you probably spend more time in bars than any sober person I've ever met.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, and I like at this point, I feel I feel totally comfortable there.
It's cool.
You know, it's just like, you know, being in bars is what I do. Drinking is not what I do. And I guess I have that clarity now, you know.
Does it even register to you that they're bars?
Not really. I mean, for me, really, it's sort of like, you know, probably like you walking into the gym where it's like time to go to work.
Interesting.
You know,
Yeah.
where I have this thing as soon as I walk into the bar, it's like talk to the bartender, find out who the sound engineer is, find it, you know, guest list, what the deal is with food, hospitality, where the green room is, where I store my crap, where I set up merch, what time I'm playing, how long I'm playing, all, you know what I mean? You just go right into work mode, you know, like going to a race or something like that. You have your prep that you do, and you know, sound check, eat, set up merch, hang out, do the thing, sell merch, get out of there as quickly as you can, you know?
Yeah, because a strange thing happened to me is like a year or so ago, and I was out at Bald Head Island in North Carolina, and there's a race out there, Badwater Cape Fear. And, you know, it's like an island cut off from everything else. You have to take a ferry out to it. And after the race, we were all just having dinner. And it was the only place in town, which was also a bar. And I honestly didn't even realize I was in a bar. And then I posted a picture, and you know how it goes, man. Someone, of course, chimes in there, and they're like, you hang out in a bar, you hang out, what did they say? You hang out in a whorehouse long enough, you end up pregnant, or something like, you know, one of those types of things. And
you know what? I'll say
I was just like, man, I didn't even realize I was in a damn bar until you mentioned it. I looked around, I'm like, oh, yeah.
You know what? I will do this. Fuck those guys. Seriously, fuck those people, because like, you work your ass off, man, and you've suffered both as a drunk and as a sober person. You've done the work. The last thing you need is some anonymous jerk on the internet undermining you as a person and and in your mission, in your quest. Like, how is that making a positive contribution? They're just like, it's like some game where it's like, oh, I served you food that had a little bit of meat in it. I got you.
Right.
You know, and it's like, what's the point? You know, what are they?
It's not about me. That's why that shit just rolls off me, man. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
What people say is about them. All the shitty things I said about people, it was about me. You know what I mean?
So much of it is just projection.
Yeah. So that doesn't bother me. For me to give my happiness or even a moment of worrying about that over to someone like that just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense at all.
To see, and because I get that kind of stuff all the time too, and see people post that stuff, I'm like, you must have a really tiny, unhappy life. You know, man, it's interesting to invest in that, to engage in that stuff of like chipping away at somebody who's worked so hard to make their own life better, to pull themselves out of a hole.
Well, let me run this by you, man. Like, so I was talking, actually, I was at a middle school or high school? Middle school. And I was kind of talking about this topic, you know, to kids, you know, like, hey, man, there are no haters. There really are no haters. There's no jerks. There's no assholes out there. You know, there are just people that are hurt, other people that are hurt. And the people, you know, what's the cliche? The people that hurt the most. Yeah. And I'm just trying to get them prepared for that what people say is, it's not about you. Don't take it personal. Don't let it in. And I gave them an example. You know, I'm sure you've had more than I have, but I've had people reach out to me and say, hey, I read your book. Great job, asshole. So glad you ran 100 miles. Fuck you. You ruined your ex-wife's life and all that stuff. And, you know, my take on it was different. That's why I want to run by you. Like, at first, you know, I'm a man. I got ego. I got all those things, right? So your first reaction is to kind of dig in a little bit. But I don't. And the interesting thing is, the old me would have dug in and really defended that to a great extent. But what I thought was, like, this guy, whoever says this, you know, I don't know where he's coming from. Maybe his dad was a raging alcoholic that beat the shit out of him every night, that didn't get sober, that never made amends, that just fucked up his life and his mom's life. And for me to take it personal and try to own that, it almost like dismisses what he's been through. So I don't respond. You know what I mean? I don't respond positive or negatively. I just kind of walk away from it. And it was actually Marshall Ulrich, the guy who wrote the foreword for my book, that kind of prepared me for that. That he goes, people are gonna be mad at you for no good reason. Do you have that?
Yeah.
How do you? Is that what you do?
I get that a lot. You know, no matter what I do.
Yeah.
You know, people are like, you know, I have, you know, like hardcore, you know, sort of old school fans of the old me who are like, you know, why don't you stop drinking or stop being a pussy and start drinking again?
Right,
that kind of shit. And it's just like, yeah, I can't even.
They're lost, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then people who are like, oh, you're such a hypocrite because you're sober, but you sing the old songs, or,
Right.
you spend so much time in bars. And, or, I got called out a lot for not being, plant-based. And now I get called out a lot for being plant-based.
No
You know what?
shit.
Like,
Yeah.
I don't give a shit.
Fuck no.
My, and my experience is different from yours and different from Rich's in that I didn't get sober with a support group. I didn't have anybody helping me, which is good and bad. And I'll definitely like cop to that, but it means that I own my sobriety. I own who I am today, all the good and all the bad. I don't owe anything to anyone. I don't do anything out of obligation. I only do stuff that I want to do. So if somebody says, "Oh, you owe it to the sobriety community," no, I don't. I don't. If I do anything, it'll be because I genuinely care. It'll be because I really want to help somebody, but it will not be out of a sense of obligation.
I would submit to you that that's the only way it exists.
I feel the same way. That if you're doing something out of a sense of obligation or duty, then it's like homework.
Yeah.
It's
Well, I mean, I
work.
think
It's a job list thing. It's not something that you feel good about doing.
And it might benefit someone else, maybe, if you do something out of obligation, but it's certainly not going to benefit you. And ultimately, that is the greatest way, right? When I'm doing something that creates happiness in my own life because I want to do it, that translates. You know what I mean? That truly communicates something greater than whatever it is the action or the intention is, I think.
Yeah.
And that's the type of thing that draws me into the realm of Buddhism, because that's what the Buddha says. It's all on you. You're happy, it's on you. You're sad, it's on you.
Yeah.
You're depressed, it's all on you.
Yeah. I get called out sometimes for not doing more to steer people to sobriety or to, to eating plant-based or to exercising or whatever. One of the most powerful, forces for good in my life is my friend Eben, who never said a word to me about getting sober or, changing how I was living. I would always just see him and hang out with him, and he had more money, he had more energy, his girlfriend was better looking than mine, he had more fun, he did stuff, and I was just like, finally at some point, and he was only ever supportive, towards me and, showed care for me, never bailed me out when I got in trouble, but he was my friend, and then, it was only when I asked, like, why is your life so much better than mine? And he was like, well, there are some things that you do that I don't do. And then I was like, oh man, I never, but because it was something that I figured out eventually, and not something where he was like, man, you really need to, he wasn't trying to sell me anything. And then because I felt like I discovered it, then it was something that I was invested in. And, so he's been an enduring positive influence on me by not doing anything other than just living his life.
See, that's totally the way I am. And maybe that's just a New Yorker in me, but I don't have time to it's mental masturbation for me to project myself into someone else's life and think that there's something that I could say that's going to make them want to get sober, make them want to go plant-based. No one was going to fucking talk me into quitting drinking. It wasn't going to happen.
Are you kidding? That's like the best way to cut people out of your life is, when you're drinking and they're like, if you don't do this, I'm going to leave. And you're like, see ya.
Yeah. Good.
It's just like, that's a great way to, all right,
I'll
delete your number right now. Like, are you kidding? Thanks for streamlining my life. Now I can just focus on annihilating myself. That never works.
Rich and I had a funny conversation like the last time I was on his pod when we were talking about, he's like, well, what do you say when someone reaches out to you? And I'm like, it's easy, man. I go, because someone will reach out and go, hey man, I'm drinking and my wife's left me and I've lost my job and I can't stop. What's wrong with me? And I go, oh, that's easy, man. Your life's just not bad enough yet. That's it. And what do you mean, man? Everything's crashing out. I'm like, I know. How fucking bad do you want it to get?
Yeah, you're still drinking.
And Rich said he was much more politic. I was like, that's the difference between New York and LA, right? Like, because everything I say comes from a place of love. It really does. And when I first started getting people reaching out to me, which was just mind numbing, I was like, why would anyone reach out to me? I was the biggest fuck up there was.
Well,
but I wanted to save
that
him.
is why you're qualified.
Sure, right. But I wanted to save him. You know what I mean? My heart hurt for them. I saw myself there, and I still do. But I realized I wasn't helping anybody by coddling them and making it easy. The truth is the fucking truth.
Yeah.
And when someone approaches you for the truth, they're ready to hear it. When you're trying to project it on them, ain't happening.
Yeah.
I think anyway.
Yeah. No, I totally feel the same way. That the you can't change people.
No, I've never helped anybody.
People can change everything about themselves if they want to.
Damn right.
But for us to come in from the outside to try and change other people, like it's a waste of their time and ours. And I always get this, being accused of, narcissism or me. Well, listen.
Do you know what the best thing about narcissism is?
What's that?
Me.
All right, that's great. That is good.
Dad joke number one. We'll start.
I was like, it took us a long time to get to that. Let that be the first of many. But no, the only thing that I know how to do, the only thing that I know how to do is to try to make myself better, try and make my life better, try and put one foot in front of the other. And that doesn't necessarily mean running more or doing another race or getting another, guitar. Sometimes that step is calling my mom or calling my dad or calling one of my sisters or calling my foster brother, or, you know what I mean? Like reaching out to people in my circle and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, when I did Rich's last, podcast, I had, there was one woman who was sort of like, oh, you're so, horrible for griping about getting older and, you should be out there saving the world. I was like, really? I mean, I have a hard time keeping up on my laundry, lady. I doubt that I'm going to be able to do anything to save the world. It turns out that a lot of those people that we see who are out there saving the world are creating these bogus institutions that then funnels all this money into doing something the opposite of saving the world. And furthermore, for every one critic who says oh, why are you, struggling, you're so spoiled and self-involved to be concerned about aging or whatever. I had 90 people who are like, oh my God, thank you so much for dealing with this, for talking about this. I'm in the same boat, exactly. I don't know. I've lived longer than I thought I was going to live. I don't know what the future holds. I'm struggling. I'm going through menopause, or I'm struggling with low testosterone, or my miles aren't going up anymore. Now they're going down, I have joint problems from overrunning, or, so it's turns out that for me to worry about my own concerns and to speak publicly about them, that I was able to tap into something universal, and it did end up helping people. I had a lot of really great, in-depth, productive conversations with other people who are, that's what it's all about, man. Sometimes I feel like that's the only thing tethering humanity to this planet is our ability to share with one another.
Honesty is universally respected.
Yeah.
It really
across
is.
cultures.
If whatever you're saying is coming from a place of honesty, it's going to have value, because it's an illusion to think that you're experiencing something that no one else is or no one else has, or especially internally, because we may not have the same exact experience in life, but everything's perceived internally the same way. Does it really matter if I'm dealing with alcohol and drug addiction and someone else is dealing with, a traumatic past? It's all internal pain. It's all trying to move past, trying to find a better place to live.
Yeah, we all want to transform, man.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that was shocking. And I'm sure you had this same experience of writing your book and just putting in all the horrible details of all the shitty stuff we did, and the shitty things we thought, the shitty things that we did, the irresponsibility, self-destructiveness, all the people we hurt. And then the response you get from people is oh man, I did all the same stuff. Or I didn't do any of that stuff, but I know exactly how you feel, because I felt the same way about being anorexic or being a survivor of incest or whatever, that shame, the the struggle to put that pain behind you and move forward, but then also like, oh, that pain is my identity. That's who I am. How can I leave that behind? It's all that I am. It's heavy, man, but it's a great privilege that you and I both enjoyed to be able to share that pain with other people and find brothers and sisters out there like all around the country and all around the world who have either been through the same things or been through very different things, but then things that speak to our experience as well.
Yeah, the only reason I put well, first of all, the only things I could write in my book were the things I remembered. Most of them I didn't remember, right? So first I had to start from that premise, right? What do I remember? Yeah. And then from there, I chose the most humiliating things that I could remember. I had, I didn't want to tell stories about slapping strippers' asses and riding around in limousines and all that fucking shit. I wanted to talk about, not being too drunk to wrap my kids' Christmas presents. And the only reason I did it, honestly, is that I felt that I was in some sort of jeopardy with myself if I didn't. You know what I mean? That it had to be honest, it had to be fearless, and then if I wrote it out and then it was too much and I didn't want to release it, that would be okay.
Yeah.
But what wouldn't be okay was lying to myself in the process. And it's like you said, to your point, all of those terrible things that I didn't want to confront, they're all positives now. Like when I read those things, I think of, like you said, how many people related to that. It's not even a bad memory anymore. It's a positive one.
And how far you've come. You can't measure how far you've come until you take, you measure that low water mark. Like, oh man, that's how far down it got. One of the, I'm working with a couple of different people right now, who are writing their own memoirs. And one of the things that I talk about with them is, number one, write everything down. The page is a secret. That is your confessor. Tell the page everything. Just be completely open and honest. The writing is such magic to be able to be open and honest with yourself through that black magic of writing words on the page, and then you can sort of talk to yourself and talk your way through trauma you've experienced, or in our cases, inflicted on other people, and you can move forward. It's the cheapest therapy, second cheapest therapy out there after running. And another thing that I tell people when you're putting together a memoir is think of how a constellation is formed. There's X number of stars that are articulate. This is where Orion's elbow is, or whatever. And that's what those are the points on which the entire shape is hung. So when you're writing a book or when you're writing a memoir, you can't write down literally every single thing that's ever happened to you that you remember. You need to write down those constellation points, right. Those points on which the shape is hung, those points that inform who you are, who you've become. And in our cases, it has a lot to do with the humiliating moments, the shameful moments, the traumatic moments, the things that we wish we could forget, but that we can't, and it is the sort of shame and the grief and the, that burden that you carry with you that involves who you are.
So I was talking to Stone Cold the other day, strangely.
That is so amazing, dude. I have so many friends who are hardcore wrestling.
I didn't mean to drop a name, but...
No, dude, are you kidding? He's like, I have so many friends who are hardcore wrestling fans who are going to be like, what?
It's pretty cool. But one of the things we ended up talking about, Kiss, the rock band Kiss.
Yeah.
And, I'm a guitar player, and we were talking about Ace Frehley.
Uh-huh.
And I was reminded I remembered Ace saying something about... because I was kind of devastated when I learned how to play guitar and learned that Ace wasn't a guitar hero.
Yeah.
And he said something really funny.
Those Kiss songs are like paint by numbers.
You should just let Paul play the lead. But anyway, he said if I didn't know I was going to inspire so many guitar players, I would have practiced more. Sometimes I feel like that about my book. If I didn't know so many people were going to read it, I'd become a better writer.
I feel the same way about my stuff. My stuff, I go back and look at it, and I'm like, can I redo this whole thing? I mean, relive it, obviously, and also rewrite it, But I was thinking about this, I was like, flipping through Facebook, we posted, we're going to ask for, questions and whatnot. My friend Scott Cummer.
Yeah.
He does 10.
Is it really Cummer and not Coomer?
I
It's Cummer from now on, no matter what.
I should apologize in advance for mispronouncing anybody's name because my name always gets butchered. And
I don't know. I don't know what the correct one is.
His name is Scott, and he does a podcast called
Kummer.
I think it's ERER. Oh my God, we're gonna have to. He does a podcast called 10 Junk Miles, which you should totally check out. Great dude. But one of the things that's interesting about my friendship with Scott is that, it was reading The Long Run and, him reading about me, loafing my way through a couple of 50-milers that then inspired him to go on and run like insane, like 88 miles through the middle of winter and like, some hardcore 100-milers. And I'm, sort of stunned and, still in disbelief that the things that he's done now have far outpaced anything I've ever done. But I played a little role in that by showing him that it was possible, which doesn't mean that his triumphs are mine, but that I need to allow myself to feel a little good about that I wrote a thing, a story, my experiences. It's like a message in a bottle, sent it out into the world. And then it sort of went and did its work, and it still does its work. And also inspiration it's not a zero-sum game. There have definitely been times where I've gotten out of shape, where I'm trying to get back in shape, and I'm like, oh man, this sucks. Like, why am I doing this? Like, running's stupid. I'm just gonna quit. And I think about Scott and people like Scott, and I'm like, man, he was probably up. It's like 10:30 right now. He was probably up at 5 a.m. running twice the miles, in, like 30-degree weather.
Right.
I can suck it up and, and run a little more, and so it's cool the way that it's sort of, we hitchhike off of each other.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, it's funny because we always find what we're looking for, right? And if you can be present enough in your life to put your experiences out there in a genuine way, I truly feel it's going to always fall in the right places, right? The right people are going to find it at the right time. Maybe not everyone who wants to see it's going to see it, but when you put love out there, when you put something authentic out there, it's going to find its way. And I think, like we were talking about earlier, like you can't help anybody. I say that all the time. Like my book, I haven't helped anybody. And I know some people would go, oh, that's not true, man. I read your book and this and this. But the truth is, when I was ready to change in my life, I looked out for strength, for inspiration, for all those things. Mm-hmm. And I found it, because I was looking for it. And I found it in, lots of different places, lots of different books, lots of different authors, lots of different movies. So now for me to have somebody else looking, and when they open their eyes and look around, they see my story, that's a gift for me.
Yeah.
That's an amazing gift for me. And in return, that person comes into your life. And I've had the same thing happen. I mean, I look out to see my friends who are doing things now, and that gets my ass up, and gets me moving and gets me. Yeah. Well, look at me. Why am I sitting here doing this podcast thing, right? Would that have happened if Rich's thing wouldn't have come up and impacted my life so greatly, so profoundly? Probably not. Maybe, I don't know, but here I am.
Yeah. I think sometimes too how fortunate I was to have published The Long Run when I did, book. Because would I have stayed sober without the shitloads of positive reinforcement I've gotten from people online, like, man, you're such an inspiration, like, we love you so much, that kind of thing, and those people have always been, I sort of bring them with me everywhere I go, and it's like a positive burden, that I feel like, no, I can't let them down, and there have definitely been times where I was like, nah, I'm not going to do this thing that I was going to do because I would be letting them down, or I'm going to do this thing that I said I wasn't going to do because I need to not let them down.
So is that an obligation? Because you say you don't do things out of obligation, and that's true, or are you just looking for a reason to keep going on your path?
I don't think, I definitely don't think I'm doing it out of obligation. I'm such a hard-headed dude
right.
that, the minute that, but it's sort of like, here's a good example. My sister's kids, you make a decision, either consciously or unconsciously, to become a parent.
Right.
I have a lot of friends who are from the school of unplanned parenthood. But to become an aunt or an uncle, you play no role in that.
True.
It's not a responsible, calculated decision that you make. It's not a night of drunken irresponsibility and then you become an uncle. No, it's just something that happens.
Well, unless your brother sleeps with your wife while you're drunk, then you become an uncle by accident. Does that count?
Let's not go.
Okay. That's sick the way my brain works. Sorry. Anyway, go ahead. I apologize.
This is just the tip of the iceberg, man. Just the tip of the iceberg. But, so I have 4 nieces and nephews. And, so I can either be the sort of, distant uncle who whatever sends a card on their birthdays or whatever, and doesn't do anything else. I don't have any obligation to play a role in their lives. I don't. I didn't create them. I didn't bring them here. I've done my damnedest to play a role in their lives and to be involved with them. And, when I see them, every time I see them, I tell them, I love you. I love you so much. Yeah, because, for me, it's not an obligation. It's like an opportunity. This is the closest I will ever come to having my own children without ever having to change diapers and shit like that. So I need to embrace this opportunity that I have. And I think with the people who've read my stuff, who've read, The Long Run, and I Swear I'll Make It Up to You, and my Kindle singles, I have an opportunity there to, to see something positive. And, if those people are making me run more often or run longer or eat better or, live better, then yeah, it's a great opportunity. I gotta take that.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to talk about the vegan diet. Actually, let's go there, man. Let's jump into that because that was really big. You've been pretty public about not being vegan.
Yes.
Talk about that. Talk about where you were, so for example, if we go back, you've been on Rich Roll a couple of times, and I know.
Yeah.
You used to post pictures of a whole ham hock or something. Yeah. At least in my mind, that's what I'm saying. I don't know if that's actually real or if I.
Yeah, getting the fury from the vegans just motivated me further to be like, oh yeah, here's another just gray pile of meat,
Which is awesome that you're on Rich's show so many times and so not vegan.
Well, Rich and Julie are, 2 more examples of people who led by living, not by proselytizing, been friends with Rich for a while, and he never said a word to me.
How did you guys meet? I don't even know.
This guy Dean Dwyer, who did a podcasted with Rich and podcasted with me, and I think who has since sort of dropped out, is no longer doing a podcast. He connected us, and then I read Rich's book, and Rich read mine. And he came over, and we podcasted, and sort of just became instant brothers, like you and I have.
Yeah.
And but Rich never criticized the way that I ate. Never said, you shouldn't be doing this or you should be doing this. He understood and accepted that we felt different about certain things. And, when we were podcasting, we talked more about what we had in common. And also, had some, sort of spirited debate about, I'm not a proponent of the 12-step program. He is, so we sort of engaged in a little bit of debate about that, but just sort of never really went there with food. And then, and I had so much resistance to eating vegan, partly because of where I come from. I come from a very sort of meat and potatoes kind of family, salt of the earth. My grandfather, for breakfast, he was a poor farmer, had 17 children. For breakfast, he would have 2 pieces of toast.
You had 17 children for breakfast?
Yes. A filling meal. for breakfast before he went out to work in the field, he would have, 2 pieces of toast with lard on them and
Awesome.
a glass of hot water because they couldn't afford coffee or tea.
Oh shit.
So I mean, it was hard times.
Wow.
And so I very much come from, just like you eat what's put in front of you. You eat what's on your plate. You don't waste anything. And also, a lot of the stuff that John Joseph goes into of like, oh, you need a steak, bro, that kind of shit. And, but there, I had a lot of resistance to vegan food, to vegan ethics, to vegan sort of like woo-woo lifestyle of, that like, eating this will put you in harmony with the universe. And I was like, well, how do I measure that? What are the units of harmony with the universe that I measure in a laboratory?
Dreadlocks.
Yeah. Okay. Parts per million, in dreadlocks. My father's a scientist, and I grew up, sort of big on empirical data, and where's the proof, and then there's also, and I think that this is something that the vegan movement and the plant-based movement has to deal with, is that there is this bougie affectation of like, rich white LA vegans, paying, the $19 avocado toast thing.
I still hate the word, man.
I know.
Yeah.
I bag on it in my live show and people are like, why do you bag on that? Well, I bag on everything that I am.
Because it's easy.
That is my show, is tearing myself down, But finally, the way that I came around, I didn't have some epiphany about the ethics of not eating animals, although I do support that. I didn't come around to, I wasn't like, I'll have better skin or, better energy or, it'll correct my chi or
my
whatever.
chakra is going to be badass.
I was like, I'm going to fucking die.
Yeah, man.
And I just, I went to a doctor and he was like, yeah, you're not healthy. And I was like, but I'm young. I just turned 40. I run long distances sometimes. And he was like, well, do you get 8 hours of sleep a night? And I was like, no. And he was like, do you go to sleep at the same time, and wake up at the same time? And I was like, no. And he was like, you get sunshine every day? And I was like, no. And exercise every day? No. What did you eat for breakfast? Well, a bag of Twizzlers. Like, come on.
Did you ask him the same questions? I would have.
I should have. I should have.
Except for the Twizzlers. I'm not sure what you would have got for them.
Yeah. But, and I was pre-diabetic. He said I had the testosterone of a 70-year-old man,
Brutal.
Vitamin D deficient, high cholesterol.
It had to be a nut shot, literally, I guess.
Oh yeah, it was. Yeah, I mean, it was. I was just like, what the fuck, And I was like, well, this explains why I've been just wanting to die every minute of every day for the last 18 months. A big, there's a lot of people have a lot, in the same way that people have a lot of hangups about meat, to what it means and what it doesn't mean. Same thing with testosterone. It's like,
sure,
everybody's like, oh, boners. That's the first thing where your brain goes, and that's the first place my brain,
Sure.
went. Is I was like, well, I can still get the occasional boner. How can I be testosterone deficient? And he was like, well, have you been depressed? And I was like, oh my God, I've been so depressed. Are you kidding? And he was like, well, yeah, that's the first way in which it manifests. And I was like, holy, so pain is a great motivator.
Hell
Fear
yeah.
is a great motivator. And and vanity is a great motivator too. When I just sort of like took a good hard look at myself, and I was like, I'm totally out of shape. I'm 20, 30, 35 pounds overweight. I've really fallen, from living on the road, I've really fallen out of doing all the things that I know are good for me. And I just lost my uncle to diabetes, which is a horrible death. And I was like, this is it, man. Just wake the fuck up. And like, so I was like, okay, I've got to cut out, refined sugar. And then I've got to cut out, breads and stuff like that. So like, more pork chops, eggs for breakfast, all that stuff. And then my weight continued to go up. My blood sugar didn't come down. And then you and I had a great conversation when I was and I will always be grateful to you for that, man. Thank you for that. Thank you for picking up the phone. Thank you for calling me back. It was like, I needed that at the time. I really needed that. And I was just like, this is it, man. You know, this is a huge opportunity. And I knew I had love and support from you, from Rich, from Josh, from like all kinds of people out there. And I was like, I just got to get right, you know? And so I read a bunch about how to fight, you know, diabetes. And I just, you know, made the leap and went plant-based. And that was like super hardcore for a couple of days of like just eating greens.
Right.
And like, you know, not eating any grains, not eating.
You went
any
full
food.
addict with it.
Yeah. Is there any other way to do anything? Well, I knew I had to get my blood sugar to come down. And then finally I did get it to come down. And then I sort of started eating fruit again and my blood sugar didn't go back up. And then I started eating oatmeal for breakfast again and my blood sugar didn't go back up. And
it's amazing.
And I'm not going to lie about it, man. You know, people are like, oh yeah, I went vegan and now I feel great. Okay. You're skipping over the middle part there, which is you feel like fucking garbage for a while.
Especially from where you were starting from.
Yes.
Too. Yeah. There's a switch over. Your body's got to build new metabolic pathways.
Absolutely. And I was tired. I was lightheaded. Like my stomach was always upset. I could never get full and like, and it sucked. And then finally the switch flipped. And then I was like, oh, I can run better, longer. I don't need to eat as much. My stomach doesn't get upset on the run. I recover better. I'm starting to enjoy the food that I'm eating. I got to be a better cook, you know, you
started caring about food.
Yeah, I still haven't got to the point where Rich and Julie are where...
Oh, God.
Where they're
I would submit there's very few people that are there, man.
Where every meal is, you know, like an orgy of health and nutrition. Yeah. You know, for me, it's like I'm still obsessed with doing stuff. So, I mean, for me, it's just sort of like fueling up the truck, you know. But I lost 25 pounds without really trying. I'm running way better than I have in a long time. I feel way better.
Were you struggling with you weren't trying to moderate how much you were eating, right? You were just eating, just trying to eat on what you were eating.
Yeah,
and you still lost the weight. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and I mean but you got to go about it the right way. You know, I mean, I have a lot of people who want to support me, you know, and they're like, oh, well, there's this great vegan ice cream place. No, are you? Sugar is my first drug, my worst drug, you know, over anything else. That's what I want, you know. And there's a lot of stuff that's, you know, vegan that's fucking garbage, man.
Crap, yeah.
And so, you know, I had to fortunately I'm in Atlanta where I don't have a lot of friends. Right. So it was like just me and my girlfriend and she was like, yeah, I'm with you on this. Like, let's do it. And so we just got into a great pattern of like oatmeal in the morning sweetened with stevia instead of honey or, you know, or any kind of agave syrup or anything like that. And then, you know, big smoothie after our run and then for dinner, you know, like mounds of cauliflower, broccoli, green beans, lentils, beans, you know, big salads, lots of nuts. But just fruits and vegetables, man.
Imagine that.
That's it. Nothing out of a package, nothing with, you know, more than one ingredient. You know, and it makes shopping real easy. You go to the produce section and then you leave.
I think that's one of the blessings that I had in it is that I did it somewhat on my own too, in that I didn't know about things like diet cheese and veggie burgers and, you know, bacon made of seitan and all. I didn't know about any of this. So I ate greens, grains, and beans, and that was a blessing. You know, I
Yeah.
think that because that's what hooks you, and you start feeling good, and you start really reaping the benefits of
It
plants.
totally, it resets your palate
Yes,
too.
totally.
You know, like I had food with my buddy Kyle Pogue last night, and we had vegan meatballs. I was like, this is amazing,
Right.
You know, but had I gone from Twizzlers
yeah.
to vegan meatballs,
They
I
would've
never
tasted like
would have.
shit.
Yeah, that would have tasted like shit, and I never would have gotten to the greens, grains, and beans thing.
Yeah, I used to like love strawberry Pop-Tarts and hate strawberries.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? And now I taste a strawberry, I'm like, this is sweet. It's
Yeah.
amazing. And a Pop-Tart would taste like fucking disgusting. Your body's
Yeah.
not
It
doesn't
doesn't even
know what
taste
that
like
is.
food.
It's not. It's just a
Yeah.
bunch of crap. So let me ask you this, man. Did you have any issues while this was going on with like, you know, mentally, with like internal battle and specifically identity? Because like we attach our identity to being alcoholics, to what we eat, to our behaviors, and you start engaging in all these behaviors that are in conflict of how you see yourself, and then that's an uncomfortable place.
Me overthink a positive transformation. Me
I
hang on
went
to
out on
all
a limb
this
here.
like
I like to risk it out here at the podcast.
me hang on to all this like grief and sadness from the past to
Yeah,
from
man.
who do you think yeah, no, of course I did. It's
How
like,
did you navigate
yeah.
that, or was it just the fear was so big for you?
It was fear and loss. I mean, I loved my uncle so much. He was one of those people who I knew him my entire life. You know, I mean, he was just there from day one, and he was my godfather. You know, at this point, I've outlived both my godmother and my godfather. Wow. And
So who's going to take care of you, man?
We'll place a Craigslist
Besides the
ad
state.
wants to adopt a 40-year-old man child. And you know, he was always incredibly kind to me, and his death just seemed so cruel because he was a simple guy. You know, he loved his like black cowboy hat. He loved the chuck wagon races. You know, he lived way up north in Canada, and he was one of the few white people who the First Nations tribes really accepted as one of their own. You know,
cool.
and he lived with them, and they had First Nation drummers come and play at his funeral.
Oh,
and
man. That must have been emotional.
I mean, I couldn't make it because I had touring obligations, and also and this is sort of kind of poetic, but I had gone out and like run a marathon that I wasn't trained for, you know, for my 40th birthday, and fucked up my IT band so badly that I couldn't sit. And for the flight up there, I would have been in agony.
Right.
And so I couldn't afford the ticket, you know, and so I just stayed at home and like lay in bed and cried for 3 days. And so a lot of it was like thinking about him and thinking about all the people in my family who have type 2 diabetes, or who are pre-diabetic or full on, you know, injections and or people who haven't gone to the doctor and refuse to go to the doctor and are going to like orphan their kids, you know, when they're in their 60s. And, you know, it was a brutal time, to be sure. But I knew you were there with me, and I knew that Rich was, and I knew that, and like, you know, Josh, you know, how much has that guy fucking
awesome.
suffered to get that weight off and to keep it off? You know,
sure.
I mean, that was one of the things that was like really, really good for me, is always knowing that other people I loved had it harder. I was just like, this is it, man. This is the warning light. You know, I can ignore this. I could have ignored all those things. You know, a good friend of mine, you know, texted me, you know, after I posted something about it. He was like, dude, I've had low, you know, testosterone for years. You just get on the shots and that's it. And I was like, yeah, you get on the shots and then you're on it for the rest of your life. You're basically addicted to that medication, you know, and your testicles stop producing testosterone because they're like, oh, we're getting it from an outside source. So then, you know, God forbid you lose your health insurance or whatever. And I was like, no, man, it's too early. I know that genetically it runs in my family. So maybe in 10 years, maybe then, but man, I just turned 40.
Right.
And I was like, I still got a lot of mistakes to make. I still got a lot of shit to figure out. It's too early in my life to be hooked on a medication, man.
You know what's crazy? all this sound like just listening to this, man. It's beautiful because you had a rock bottom. I mean, you absolutely had like a vegan rock bottom, plant-based rock bottom.
Yeah.
You had the entire universe conspire to just hammer you down to that sufficient place where you were willing to walk away from.
Yeah.
There was enough pain to walk away from.
Yeah. And, it's such a bummer. I got invited to speak at Veg Fest this year, which I texted.
You have to do that.
I immediately texted Rich, and Rich was like, dude, you have to do that just for it happens the same time during my family reunion. So, and I can't miss this
There'll
one,
be others.
But I was already sort of thinking in my head of like how I would approach it, how I get, because to me, it feels so hypocritical
I'd
to
pay
get up there.
$100,000 to go see that.
And, but one of the things that, that I would talk about is, you don't have to take a righteous path to get to a righteous place. Sometimes you have to walk through the fucking gutter. You have to crawl on your hands and knees through filth for a long time to get there, and for me, I'm super proud of where I am now with eating and with my health and with exercise. And, but I got there through pain and fear. And one of the things that's keeping me here is fucking vanity. I love walking by a mirror and not being like, oh God, it's like, I lost 25 pounds. I have like a weird ab muscle again. I'm like, man, look at that little guy.
I mean, it's palpable. Like just seeing you at my front door is like a different person, man. Seriously. And it's not just the weight, it's everything. It's health.
Yeah.
There's weight and there's health, and they're two very different things.
Yeah. I feel, even at my worst, I feel better now. I still struggle with other shit. I mean, my back is a constant. It's just sort of like pain management, but I need to be more vigilant about pursuing health instead of a fix when it hurts. I need to do my exercises. I need to do the stretching and strengthening exercises. I need to, in the same way that, that you and I were all about running, I really think now it's like we need to transition to fighting and yoga.
Right.
Because fighting is good for my brain and yoga is good for my body.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, God, at this point, I wonder if I've done more damage to my body through running than I ever did with alcohol.
Interesting. Could be.
Well, let's talk about that. Can I grill you for a minute?
You can. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Let's talk about, the switching one addiction for another.
Oh man, that's on my list to talk about.
Because you and I are on very different sides of the coin with that.
Yeah, so actually, let me just put the vegan thing to bed for one quick second, and actually say, my path was very similar in that I did it just for sports performance. It wasn't health, but it was. Can I be a better athlete? I'm not going to go into a big long thing on it. Most people listening know, but the bottom line is it sent me on a journey that eventually took me full circle to where, I did start to see more of the compassion side of it. And I did start finding other reasons to be, because again, I didn't even do it for health. In fact, because I was also allergic to that vegan word. Yeah. I used to tell people when they said, oh, you eat a plant-based diet, right? I'd go, yeah, but I would club a baby seal if it'd make me faster.
But
make no mistake.
Yeah.
So anyway, that journey is a beautiful one, and it's going to take you to lots of different places. And maybe an interesting segue into what you want to talk about is I was going to ask you, so you were kind of, in some ways, I don't want to use the word wrong, but you had an incorrect picture of what the plant-based thing was.
Wrong is a good word.
Okay,
to
wrong.
use.
We'll use wrong. I like wrong.
I'm
you
comfortable
were fucking
with
wrong.
Dude, I'm like professionally wrong. That's
professionally wrong.
That's
Good.
what I do.
Good. Is it possible you are professionally wrong about AA?
Yeah, it's absolutely. Yeah. And listen,
because that I'm not an AA guy. I did go to AA at first, but I'm not the typical 12-stepper either. Mm-hmm. But I am a spiritual path guy.
Yeah.
There has to be something that answers the why. Why did I do this? I can't just change the behavior. For the first 2 or 3 years of my journey, if I'd lost the ability to run, I'd have been fucked. I'd have been right back at a bar. Yeah. And eventually it's got to the place now where I'd like to think you could take it all from me, man. You could take my house, my job, my business, my running, everything, and I'm going to be just sitting there fine, breathing into the wind.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll say this, man. I think I like being proved wrong more than I like being proved right.
Hell
Because
yeah.
I have a pretty negative view of the world, and I know that, and I understand that. And every time that I'm proved wrong about something, it shows to me that I still have a capacity for learning, and that, and it's a good reminder of my position in the universe, which is very, very small.
Yeah. Tiny.
You know, that I'm grateful to diabetes for showing me how small and fragile I really am. I'm grateful to DMT for showing me like how, you know, how infinitesimal I am, you know, in the scope of things in the universe. The thing, you know, the thing about AA is that, you know, I mean, I was talking to a friend about eating plant-based, and he was like, oh, I should really do that. And I was like, no, you shouldn't. And he was like, why not? And I was like, well, you've been a junkie for 25, 30 years. Your problem is that you're underweight. You need those extra calories. You need to stack on. You know, for a lot of us, it's that we're getting too many calories. You know, he's still a smoker. I was like, I'm concerned that you're not getting enough. You know, one of the things that people always say, like, oh, well, you know, you eat vegan now, you know, like, how do you get enough calories? I'm like, dude, I was 35 pounds overweight. Getting enough calories was not my problem. I was getting more than enough. You look at America, we're all fat. Everybody is overweight, overweight to obese.
Yeah.
Getting enough calories as a population, that's not our problem.
But gaining weight at the expense of health might not be the best scenario either.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen, I'm not a doctor, and I'm not a nutritionist, and you know, the information I have is the information that I have.
Yeah, no.
I know
That's true for doctors too.
Yeah, I mean, I know that a great way to stack on weight is to eat shit like pizza and burgers and stuff like that.
But there's better ways.
Yes, there are better ways.
Yeah.
But my point to my friend was that he didn't need to be restricting his diet further.
Yeah.
That he needed to be finding ways in which to take in more calories, not fewer calories, and not restrict his diet further. You know, I know a lot of women who are.
I know. I read the book.
You're on fire today.
I don't know,
you had
man.
one more coffee than I did. I know a lot of women who are anorexic or bulimic or have, you know, issues with eating disorders, and then they embrace veganism as a form of asceticism to further restrict, and, you know, and that's unhealthy. But if veganism didn't exist, they'd find a way to do that anyway. You know,
for sure. Well, that's why, and that's what you did, and that's why you had the results that you had. Is that ultimately it should just be a journey towards health. You call it whatever the hell you want, but that's what it needs
it's about getting
to
better.
Be.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
addiction and running.
Yeah. Well, back to the AA thing.
Okay.
I feel that there are different cures available for the same problem.
Hell yeah.
You know, that, you know, the same way if you Google map something, you know, it'll provide you, you know, 3 different routes to get there. You know, you got there the way you needed to get there. I got there the way that I needed to get there.
I believe that.
I think, listen, if I was about to drink, I would walk into the first fucking AA meeting I could find. Because my sobriety is far more valuable to me than any semantic thing or a point of pride of like, I never did it, or no, if I need it, I will do it in a second. And that's
beautiful.
I'm not a politician. I reserve my right to say I was wrong. I change my mind.
Right.
You know, whenever I need to do that, I will do that. I did that with a plant-based diet, and I'll do it again with 12-step programs if I need to. I got to be sort of measured in my comments here. I think the 12-step I think AA has done a lot of good for a lot of people. I think it has failed a lot of people. And of particular concern for me are women. I know I'm good friends with Amy Dresner. You've got to read her book if you haven't. She was just on Rich's podcast.
I haven't read it.
And I mean, a lot of it, she talks about the 13th step, and sort of people who use whether out of their own weakness or predation, use AA and 12-step programs as a way to pick up chicks,
Sure.
And engage in unhealthy behaviors when they should be pursuing healthier behaviors. So a lot of times I'm concerned that that AA serves men and doesn't serve women, or that it serves a certain type of brain and doesn't serve another type of brain. I'm not. I guess I'm agnostic now. I'm anti-theist. I don't. It's not that I'm confident that God doesn't exist. I'm against the concept of God.
Yeah.
And so that was a huge stumbling block for me with AA. And also a lot of the, anecdotally, I've found a lot of people who have cut me down, have tried to undermine my accomplishments and the transformation that I've undergone and who I am and what I've become are the AA faithful,
Sure.
And they're sort of like,
You're not sober the right way.
Yeah, and it's like, you're being a bad Catholic. It's like, well, I'm not Catholic, so those rules
Can
don't.
we define bad Catholic?
Those rules don't apply to me.
Because what you call bad Catholic, or what I call good Catholic, you might call bad. Yeah. I'm not touching boys, if that's what you mean. Like, is that a good Catholic?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, there's a spectrum on it too. But let me finish on this note. Anyone who's had success with AA or NA or any 12-step program, I'm in your corner. I absolutely support you. I got your back. Congratulations, 100%. I'm not going to, if it's helped you, I'm not going to undermine that at all or tell you did it the wrong way or whatever. No, man. If it works, it's working, and power to you and keep doing it. For me, I didn't want to go. I didn't go. I don't feel like I need to go now. And I think I would be reluctant to send some people there.
Yeah. That's fair.
But it's the way I feel about Radiohead is that, like, kind of like the band, hate the followers. The way I feel about AA is that, like, I'm all for the followers. I support them. It's the band that I'm not wild about. It's the focal point that I'm not.
That's how I feel about Boulder. I just lost a listener. Just one. Oh man, yeah. And I'm with you, man. Like, I really am. So for me, there's a bigger picture in play than AA, right? Like, is what you're doing making you happy?
Yeah.
And from that perspective, I don't care whether you've been to AA, an inpatient, outpatient, by reading, by doing whatever it is walking away from your old life and your old practices making you happy. Because if it's not, in my estimation, you're not doing it correctly. Because what is the point? If you're not happy, and I don't mean I don't mean joy. I don't mean temporary moments of joy. I believe the spectrum too, right? Like, if all you've done is quit drinking, and you're still kind of the same person, but you're not drinking anymore, that's still better.
Yeah,
that's still
absolutely,
better.
Absolutely. That's one of the things I wanted to hit on with the
it's
exercise,
still better, but
with the swapping addictions thing.
But it's just
improvement,
a fraction of what it can be. And the one thing about AA that I say is that you need to go, in my estimation, and what I needed to do is go on some sort of a journey. I needed to figure out who I am in the absence of all of this crap that I've put on myself. Who am I if I wasn't born by these parents and I never had kids and I was never married and I wasn't from New York or whatever. I just stumbled out of the woods somewhere. Who is that guy? And in doing that and seeking that out and taking the steps necessary to do that, the work, what do you call it, journaling or introspect, all that, you're gonna find some things out. AA gives you a loose framework for doing that.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
In that sense, it's good. And if you don't want that one, I don't care. You find it in Buddhism. You can find it in whatever practice that you want to go on. In writing, absolutely, you can do that. That's just kind of my take on it. So for some people, they're probably not going to take the steps to figure out what that is unless you can show them an easy framework. For those people, I think AA is really good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But for some people, for me, my journey into AA was really important for me because if for no other reason, I had to prove to myself that my ego was sufficiently beaten down that I would go.
Yeah.
And that was the real value of AA for me at first because I'd tried it before and I'd go, fuck these losers. You know, I got a business. I make shit happen. You know, I don't, and I needed that guy to be dead.
Yeah.
You know, and then I went, and that was the start of me going there. And it's later morphed into, you know, the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path and all these other things. But if I wasn't doing the spiritual work, man, I think I probably would have ended up back in a bottle when I got divorced.
If I ever wind up in AA, it will be because I'm not happy.
Yeah.
I'm sober and I'm proud of where I am and I'm proud of the work that I've done. I'm proud of the things that I've accomplished. And I'll be honest. I wake up every morning and I'm like, fuck, this again? Like, really? Me again in this body doing this thing, doing this stuff? You know, I have I just have I was playing with my sister's dog, who I love to death, and I was like, I just looked at the dog and I said, Harley, I'm going to be so sad when you die.
Right.
And my sister was like, that is so fucked up. Why can't you just say, I love you?
I say shit like that all the
time. Else would. And because that's where my brain goes.
Sure.
It's just right to I'm going to be that's my way of saying I love you. You know,
my 6-year-old daughter said that to me once. I'm not even joking.
There's a tribe of headhunters in the Philippines, and the way that they say "I love you" is to say "I hurt for you," which I love that. That's so cool. Beautiful. It's so poetic. But me, I say, I'm going to be so sad when you die. You know, and that is pervasive throughout my life. You know, that I'm just, you know, I sort of like, you know, where my sister lives in California, fucking beautiful. I can, like, you know, roll out in the morning, walk out like into just this, you know, beautiful sort of like primordial paradise, you know, pick a pomegranate off the tree, crack it open, this like glistening fruit, and just be like, this sucks. This totally sucks, you know. And it's my gift, man. And it's my burden, and I vacillate back and forth thinking, this is who I am, and I just need to be. You and I and Rich, we're all big on authenticity. If it's ugly, better that than to be inauthentic. Absolutely. Just be who you are. Be honest. Yes. Be totally straight up. Be authentic. When I look at this gorgeous, glistening pomegranate and say this sucks, that's me being authentic. And also, we totally believe you got to fucking evolve, you know, like even an insect will like molt and shed its old skin and like turn into something else, you know? And maybe I just need to, maybe I've carried this negativity and this grief and this pain and this anger and this resentment. And maybe it's time for me to jettison it, to cast it aside, to vomit it up and like get rid of it. I don't know. I know that I'm not in my final form yet. Right. You know?
And will we ever get there? I don't know. But let me share a story with you that recently, I haven't shared this with anybody, not a single person.
Good.
Seriously. But my dad was battling cancer this year. And my dad has been my rock my whole life. The reason that I was able to, even though I grew up in really, you know, kind of I hate to say tough circumstances because there's so many people that had way, way tougher circumstances than me.
Tough is tough, man. And for each person has their own different. Sure. It was tough for you, and that's what's important.
It was. We were, I mean, I grew up, I spent many years living in the back of my dad's truck, living from rest stops, campgrounds, church parking lots, all that kind of stuff. In fact, it's funny because I was going to make a joke at some point today about how, you know, I've spent so much time escaping living in a truck and van, and you seem to be spending so much time embracing it. But I digress. But so my dad has been my rock because he's the one that, even though we were living in these horrible circumstances, he was like, I believe in you. You know, you can be anything you want. That's you. You have the privilege of living here. You're not in some third world country where you have to struggle to just eat. You've got the deck is stacked in your favor. Yeah. It's not stacked against you. And I got that my whole life. And later I was able to draw on that when I needed it. But here I am, you know, at 46 facing, you know, what we're all going to face. And my dad's in the hospital, and he's got bladder cancer, and they had to take his bladder out. And then we got the call, and we thought he had a stroke, and we thought we were saying goodbye. And I was driving down to the hospital, and I stopped. Before I went inside, I just stopped, just trying to collect myself. And I took a few deep breaths. And it's funny, the words you used, because I said, this is beautiful.
Yeah.
It's not sad.
Yeah.
Because I'm present.
Yeah.
I'm here, and I'm not going to bring a single negative piece of energy to this. You know what I mean? I'm going to go. And the first thing my dad did, this part's funny, is we got up, because we've been talking about plant-based and things you can do, things you can control while cancer is trying to sink its talons in. And the first thing he did was ordered steak and eggs while I was there. But it's funny because I'm like, well, that's my dad, and that's his choice,
it's
and
his life,
and it's beautiful,
Yeah.
But anyway, to have the presence to be able to do that was really one of those moments where, it's just a gratitude earthquake. That I can be here and be present and find beauty in this tells me that the things that I believe are on solid ground, I think.
Yeah.
Because I like to sometimes, if anything, I question my beliefs to the point that you lose them. You start to lose them.
Yeah.
Because you know what it's like to live in a place where you're so sure of everything, and then you find out you're wrong. You're wrong about everything. You're wrong about this and this and this. So, sometimes you go, oh, fuck, my default position is to probably assume that I'm wrong.
Let's touch on that.
Okay.
And
my dad's fine, by the way. It turned
okay,
out.
I was like, I didn't want to. Okay.
No, it actually turned out good. They built him a new bladder. They can do this now.
That's
a
crazy.
neo bladder, and he's plugging along. He's a tough guy, but it really looked bad at the time. So anyway, love you, Dad.
One of the I'm continually interrogating myself, interrogating my beliefs. Every time I go out on tour, I'm like, am I going to fucking quit doing this? Am I going to do this forever? What and I stumbled upon this analogy of a credit check, that if you run several credit checks, it actually damages your credit report because those hard inquiries show up on your credit report. So I think we need to strike a balance between ruthless self-interrogation and also just leaving ourselves the fuck alone.
Yes.
And being like, no, I know this to be true. 100% of the time, I have never regretted going on a run. I have a perfect record for that.
Me too.
I fucking hate running. But every time I go for a run, I'm like, oh man, I'm so glad I did that. Every time, every single time, And so I need to stop interrogating that and just say, okay, I've tested it in every possible way. Running is truth. Just leave it alone.
Just like the voices that say you can't do it.
Yeah.
Don't need to keep giving them the light of day either. They come up and you're like, nope.
Just be like, no, I've addressed this question with you. Yep. We've addressed this concern. I'm not.
Fuck you, me.
Yeah, exactly. You can see here. I'll send you a link to the conversation we had last year.
I'll have you on the pod. Just me and two microphones and wrestling with myself.
Like Fight Club.
So you want to talk about running and addiction, or do you want to finish that thought?
One other thing that I was going to say, just on the subject of death is, because that's something that's definitely been weighing heavy, on my mind, with losing my uncle and with facing my own mortality, realizing that I'm in some kind of tailspin now, but that I am at the sort of peak, and that it's sort of starting to move into that like slow decline that will then eventually become a precipitous decline, and my grandmother lived to be 92. She had 17 children. She didn't lose any of them in her lifetime.
Wow.
When she was diagnosed with cancer, sorry, I had to burp in the middle of that dramatic story. When she was diagnosed with cancer, her kids were like, okay, what are the treatment options? And the doctor sort of looked up at them and he was like, she's got to die of something, man.
Right.
And thankfully they all sort of came to their senses and were like, oh yeah, okay, we're not going to submit her to like going through chemotherapy. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So, it was sort of hospice care. And then she was very religious at the end, she was, holding her rosary, and they were just sort of urging her, let go, go towards the light. Your work here is done, and I think that's something that, I'll remind you of, and please remind me of, and we'll remind each other of, is that death is the ultimate accomplishment.
Yeah. It's
not something for us to live in fear of. It's certain. It's coming for all of us. We're hurtling towards death right now. We shouldn't see it as something that we're trying to evade. It's something that we're continually preparing for, getting ready to meet, and that death is the supreme accomplishment of a life well lived. I hope that you and I both, and everybody we know, when we get to that moment, we're like, take me, I'm ready. I did everything here that I could. I had a fucking blast. I really tried, and I had some great times, and I had some hard times. I felt pain, I felt love, I felt joy, I felt grief, I felt horror, I felt every sensation that I could. I loved so many people. I had my heart broken so many times, and like, take me, I'm ready. Whether we're going to another life or whether we're just going into the void, I want to get to that point before I die, where I'm like, yes, that is the only thing that's not yet checked off on my list.
Yeah, man.
Dying.
We get a lifetime.
Yeah.
And we don't know how long it's going to be. And I had a situation, I fly in planes a lot, so do you. And I had one where it was just like, I know the difference between turbulence and, oh, shit.
You're like, this is it.
Yeah. You know what? And, the gut drops, you know what I mean? And you feel the blood run out of your head and your mind races a little bit. But I had that moment and I thought, I'm okay. Darn it. You know what I mean? Like, so no, seriously, my mind was actually going through the process, like, and I don't know why, but it was like, okay, well, shit, that kind of sucks because my kids are really young, and these are very, very lucid thoughts, And I'm like, should I grab my cell phone and start recording something for them? This is really where my mind was, and the thing probably lasted 30 seconds, which is a really long time.
Yeah.
But I realized I was okay, and that was another one of those gut checks. It's like, if this is it, I'm okay.
Yeah.
Because up to this point, yes, I have things I still want to do, but up to this point, in the absence of rewriting it all, I've done okay. I've done okay.
Yeah. No, I've definitely been in instances like that where I'm like, I'm going to send a little dart of love to my mother one last time so that she knows I love her, and then, and I'm out. And don't get me wrong, I hope I don't die today, but if I do, everybody knows how I feel about them.
That's cool.
My friends and my enemies. I don't owe anybody any money. The people who, I did tell the dogs that I loved them. I said, I'll be sad when you die, and also I love you. And there was this guy at the bar last night who was bragging to me about how many Klonopins he'd taken before he started drinking. And then he was trying to talk to me. And finally I was like, dude, listen, number one, that joke that you made on stage, yes, that was funny. Number two, do not talk to me again tonight. And I was like, we're done. And he was like, oh, and he got it, and he fucking left me alone, and I'm glad that I was like, okay, you made a funny joke, I'm going to give you your props, and now fuck off. Right. I'm here with friends, and I mean, I think you got to just try and make your peace with this world.
That's it, man.
And then, I think I want my last word to just be, okay.
Did you get a video of that? That's what I want my last sentence to be. Tell me you got that on tape. All right, man. So running an addiction, huh? What do you think? So
okay.
Do you know? Okay, go ahead.
I get this all the time.
Yeah.
That people are like, oh, you swapped one addiction for another. I totally think it's not true. In your case, I think it's true. And I think you've been honest about that. And I don't want to get any more shit about it because I hate running, and each day I have to be like, God damn it. At 11:59, you're going to put your shoes on and you're going to go, and I have to force myself every day. We were texting before this and you were like, oh yeah, as soon as I got off the airplane, I went right to the gym, and like,
well, that's because that's where I work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then this morning you didn't know if we were going to run or not. So you're like, okay, I'm going to go get my miles, and I think that and I don't want you to get any shit about it either, because you've been honest about it, and you're being authentic that like, yeah, no, this is the new thing. And I didn't know the old Dave, but I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that you're 1,000 times better than the old guy.
I appreciate that.
And like, if in fact you are addicted to running, addicted to exercise, then people can choose to be negative to you about that, or support the transformation you've undergone. And I fall into category 2, man. Like, if running makes you happy, like, do your best to minimize the damage to your body, and fucking have at it, man. There's worse things to be addicted to.
For the question of addiction, I leave that to other people. You know what I mean? Like, if someone wants to consider me to be addicted to running, then I don't really have a problem with that. You know what I mean? I'm more interested in my relationship with running. Mm-hmm. And for many years, I went to great lengths early on, I think, to make sure that my running actually did resemble my recovery and not my addiction. I didn't want to be compulsive with it. I know that voice of addiction, just like I know my father's voice. I know what it sounds like. I know the tone of its voice.
Yeah.
And I could sense that at times with my running, and those were warning signals for me to back off. And Rich and I did a really long pod about this topic specifically, and with me, because I kind of went on that journey, and I found a lot of valuable stuff in running. Mm-hmm. I found, for an addict, for someone who I gave up on myself every day for 15 years, I made promises to people over and over again that I couldn't follow through. And running taught me how to hold myself accountable. It taught me how to believe in myself. It taught me how to get leverage on myself when I don't want to do anything anymore, instead of just always giving in. And I found a tremendous amount of self-discovery in that process. But I did find myself in 2015, I had run...
I remember this.
Yeah, man.
I remember tracking
nuts.
this.
And I went, and I don't say nuts in a bad way, honestly. I think this was a good, healthy thing for me because of where it led. But it was my 10th year of sobriety, and I'm like, I'm going to do 10 epic things. And my goal was to be as present as I possibly could in them. So I wanted to attach kind of a spiritual goal to the athletic goal as well. So I want to do these 10 things, and I want to try to like see every blade of grass. I want to try to breathe every breath and meet every volunteer at the aid station. You know what I mean? I wanted to be really present for them. And I did it, and I thought it was beautiful. And at the end of it, instead of stopping, I kind of doubled down, and immediately the next year jumped into running across the country. And that's when it started. That's, I think, the first time, at least in my estimation. Someone else looking at my life might disagree and think I'd lost it years ago. But that, for me, is when I think I lost it a little bit. And, it became something where I felt like I wasn't driving a car anymore. Somewhere along the line, I was in a passenger seat.
That's how I feel about touring, man. And
it brought me to this beautiful place where I was, and a lot of people have heard this story, so I apologize for repeating it. But I was doing, I was trying to double down and run the Leadville 100 twice, and I invited my friend who's Bobby, a filmmaker. I was like, let's film this thing. This was the big impossible that I wrote out there about, right? Can I, 10 years later after running that, or it wasn't 10 years, it was... I can't remember how many years later it was, but it was on my 12th year of sobriety now. Like, can I do the big impossible twice? Can I double down? Can I run the course back to back? And out there, I broke down, man. I just broke down, and I was crying. And actually, kind of at my expense, became this beautiful moment caught on camera.
Well, you found, as far as I'm concerned, you succeeded.
Yeah. I believe that, man, because I was like, why am I here and not with my family?
Yeah.
When does this end? Why? What am I searching for that I haven't found? And that changed running for me forever. It's like, I'm still going to run.
Yeah.
But I'm done doing it from the same perspective. I'm done doing it as a measure of strength or even as a vehicle of self-discovery. I'm not done discovering who I am, but I'm done trying to discover it through running. And interestingly, I'm going to be doing a race here in a couple weeks in Rocky Raccoon, which, God willing, I finish, will be my first 100-miler in 17 months.
Wow.
You know, I just kind of totally walked away because I needed to, and I needed to be okay with it. And I climbed up to the top of Bear Peak and said goodbye to running. You know, I'm like, hey, you know, especially because when I was fighting, I was doing the MMA stuff, I started getting injured, and I'm like, you know, maybe this is just the end of the road for me with all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I'm at the place now where I could say goodbye to it if I had to, and just find just as much spiritual growth and happiness in other things. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm actually, so that we're making a documentary about it. It's called Hellbent. And it's about not just me, but trying to ask the question to other people, you know, what happens when you lose yourself in the pursuit of excellence or the pursuit of even something well-intentioned, you know, whether it's business or family or whatever it is. Do you have to lose yourself in that process, or can you have it all?
Yeah. There have definitely been times, you know, where it's like running into you like here and there in New York or wherever, like, hanging out for, all right, we're going to hang out for 20 minutes, meet me here, you know, or meet me on this street corner or whatever, you know, we're going to get a hug and a high five and a, you know, a selfie and like, and, there have been times where, I see in your eyes that you're in your bliss, like just deep enjoyment of running and being who you are and doing what you're doing. And I'm envious of that. And then there are other times where I see the sort of like, you know, it's like in Lord of the Rings, you know, when they hold on to the ring for too long. Yes.
Yeah.
And see you, you know, sort of, and it's such a indetectable line. And it's only sort of clear when you've gone past it or something.
When it's being willing to see it, that's the first step, right?
Yeah.
Being willing to see whatever is the truth. I want to see it.
And I admire you so much for being honest about it and for and copping to it and saying, oh yeah, no, there are definitely times where I sort of like, you know, turned this, you know, positive thing into my new drug or whatever.
Well, it's hard to balance sometimes because you know, it takes dedication and drive and hard work to do anything great, right? And the reality is, as harsh as it sounds, most people don't do anything great by their own standards.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about my standards, but they a lot of people get to the end of life and they're like, fuck, I wish I would have X or Y or Z. And you know, if nothing else, I'm going to chase down my dreams. You know, I'm going to go after them. But what I've learned in this process, or what I think that I've learned in this process, is that I have to make sure that I take happiness with me, because it's ultimately going to dictate the direction I go. You know what I mean? Because if I'm searching for that happiness, I'm never going to find it. I say if you're searching for happiness and your eyes are open, you ain't going to find it.
Yeah. So I have a conflicted relationship with happiness. One of the things that I resolved to do this year is that, like, I'm of a generation who had this sort of hippie parents who were like, we don't care what you do, we just want you to be happy.
Yep.
When I studied acting when I was a kid, and one of the things that you learn as an actor is that you don't be angry. You furrow your brow, you raise your voice, you scowl. You do things that communicate that you're angry. You're not being a thing, you're doing a thing. So to assign your children this task of the only thing we want from you is to be a thing, it's a great way to ensure that your children are always coming up short.
Absolutely.
And I keep feeling like I'm letting people down by not being happy. And so I'm trying to take a step back from it and say, well, I'm not going to commit to just being this abstract goal of being happy. I need to back up for a second and say, what are the things that make me happy? And then instead of resolving to be things, instead of resolving to be a runner, I'm going to resolve to run. And these are the ways I'm going to do it. Instead of resolving to be a musician, I'm going to resolve to write X number of songs, record X number of songs. Instead of resolving to be happy, I'm going to make a list of the things that I do that make me happy, and just focus on doing those. and forget about happiness and see if I can sneak up on it.
How's that working?
It's only 2 weeks into the new year. I don't have any results yet.
Because I have a slightly different take on it. I mean, and maybe it's just semantics or the way we describe the pictures and feelings in our head. But for me, happiness only comes from one place, and it comes from choosing to be happy right now, right in this moment, for no fucking good reason.
My mom is the same way, and she has that. She was like, Mishka, I figured out the secret to being happy. And I was like, fuck, give it up, Mom. Like, what's the, we can make $1 million. And she was like,
be happy.
Just be happy. And I was like, God damn it, Mom. Like, don't. But
happiness comes from the disconnect.
She can do this. She can do that. She can just look around and smile and be like, well, beautiful day. We're in Colorado. The sun's shining, like that crisp, clean air. She can find things to be happy about. And me, I look at that miracle, that juicy red pomegranate glistening in the sun. I'm like, that sucks.
Right. But to me, it's more than just being grateful and present for what's around is awesome. I mean, I like that too, but there's, I don't know, man, there's something more it's about releasing the expectation that if there was something else here, then I'd be happy. For me, it's about letting that go.
If this, then that.
Yes. Like, that's what I told my kids one time. I was like, do me a favor. When you're let's say you're at the Grand Canyon or the ocean or at a Rangers game. Let's say you're at Game 7 of the Stanley Cup Finals and the Rangers just won a cup and are skating around. Never say, I wish my dad were here to see this, because that will take you away from that moment. I wish I was there too, don't get me wrong. And it would be great if I was, but never wish that, because that takes you away from that moment. And now you've put something there. Oh, I just missed it.
That's one of the things that I always get into with people, about kids. People are like, well, maybe if you had a kid, then, and I'm like,
no way.
I'm not going to fucking take a gamble like that with another human being.
It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that with marriage. And I know
so many people who think if I were married, if I had a kid, if I had a boat, and all it is then you're unhappy and you're married and you have kids.
Yeah.
And you have a boat payment. And
pretty sure if making a kid made you happy, everyone's kids would be happy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
No, I reject that concept entirely.
Yeah. And you know what, though? It's so easy for us to high five each other on rejecting that concept here. And I will walk outside and I will forget it instantly. And that's one of the things that human beings do, is that, it's like the idea of forgiving yourself. I've forgiven myself and I forget. And then each day I'm like, no, you got to forgive yourself. And I forget again. And it's a constant, it's like correcting your posture or something like that. It's like, you just.
Well, I think that what helps with that, and this is just something I'm really discovering and figuring out a small way of applying it in my life, but this is where meditation comes in. Because that's like the difference between going into a race, let's say, and saying, or even a day, like I'm gonna have a really good day, or I'm gonna have a good race, or I just want to be happier. Those are such general ideas that you can't really process it, right? You need something a little more specific, and like when you meditate, it gives you a chance to work on those things, like letting go of that attachment, letting go of projecting yourself onto other people. If whatever someone else does, that's about them. It's not about you. If they're late for your appointment, it's not because they disrespect you. It's because they're late. It's like, it is whatever it is. And to me, focusing on those things and actually taking the time to meditate, like, I don't know, just it sears them into your brain so that it does become a natural reaction. It does become, my first instinct has become to protect my happiness. And I had a thing happen with my gym, not too long ago, where they were like, oh, hey, by the way, we've been misbilling you your franchise fees for the last 2 years. You owe us $15,000. And it's like, that bothered me. And it wasn't the money. It just, it felt wrong and dirty and all these things.
Well, if you made a mistake, then the mistake's on you.
But what gave me peace on it is the other way around. It's like, you know what? I do owe this money. You know what I mean? It was part of our agreement. So it's okay. I'm okay with doing the right thing. And it's before I would have just thought about the money. Yeah. And doing that released that from me. And I haven't thought about it until just now. What I mean? It is what it is.
Dude, paying back money that you owe somebody is a very specific, pleasurable feeling.
It is, isn't it?
Like, there, now my debt is paid.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree with you on meditation. One of the things that I think is underrated, or in our circle of friends, people don't esteem it as highly as meditation, is the power of combat sports.
Hell
as mental medicine. I mean, I have definitely I remember getting dumped and driving straight to the gym, and I did 10 rounds on the heavy bag, and my lips were blue, and I was okay.
Yep.
And it's because I allowed myself to feel all the feeling. I wasn't trying to put them aside. I wasn't trying to bury them. I was just like, okay, I'm going to feel everything. I'm going to let myself get angry. I'm going to let myself feel sad, and I'm going to feel everything. I'm going to punch a hole straight through this bag, and I'm going to work it all out. And then I went home and I went right to sleep, and I woke up the next day and I was like, fine.
That is meditating through movement.
Absolutely.
It absolutely is, because you are allowing yourself to feel those things. And that's
people are always like, "Oh, you're an athlete, you run," and I'm like, "That's not a sport. That's like breathing. Are you kidding?" It's like
right.
It's like I'm a championship sleeper. I mean, I am that too.
Well, I can sleep and run at the same time.
I've done that. You can.
I've done that at Badwater. But no, it's like I've had a handful of times in my life where they're like those kind of things that, they're transcendental. They're like, people don't believe you when you tell it. Like, I remember you were sitting on my brown leather chair out there in my living room. And sometimes I'll sit on the floor right in front of that chair and I meditate. And one time I was looking at that chair and I was not focusing on it. My eyes were totally unfocused and I was breathing, and the chair just went away and it kind of dissolved, and there was colors in the room, and it was this beautiful state. And at first I feared that state would go away, but it didn't. And I was able to just stay there for a while. And then unfortunately I had set my timer for 20 minutes or whatever it was, and that rang and took me out of it. So that's one time during meditating where I achieved that state. The other times are every single time I've gotten in the ring to spar. Because when you get in the ring and you hear ding, all of the people standing around, all of the people in your corner, all the people watching are gone. And it's just you. And you kind of see the person in front of you, but you don't really, at least for me, see them as a person.
You see a set of parameters.
It's a moving force that you're reacting to and in flow with. And fighting is a very intimate thing.
Dude, I need to write this story. My boxing partner for a couple of years in New York was a musician, a veteran of the rooms, spent years in AA. His name is Bill W.
Okay.
So I need to write a piece called Fighting Bill W.
Oh, wow, man.
That is about, because he was like my wife.
Yeah. Yes.
Because we were in this sort of mutually beneficial relationship in which I would hurt him and he would hurt me and we would hurt each other. And we would walk away at the end of the workout like exhausted, dripping with sweat, totally spent, a shiner or something, and be like, thank you.
Yes.
And I trusted him more than, I've never felt more pride in him and in our relationship than when I taught him to throw a good right hand and he just about fucking knocked me out. I just looked at the sky and I was like, and then I saw him again and I was like, oh, I'm going to kill him, because he finally got it and just, put me back on my heels.
You got to check out the pod I did with Pat Miletich. And he talks about when that kind of came around at his old gym, training Matt Hughes, Jens Pulver, all those guys, all those champions. And the first time Robbie Lawler knocked the wind out of him in sparring, and the whole gym just kind of like raised their hands, and it was like, we got the man.
Yeah.
We got the man. But he said it was the most proud he's ever been.
What brought me more peace from boxing than anything else was not kicking ass, but getting my ass kicked.
Yeah.
Getting my bell rung a couple of times, and then I found like boxing when I was writing my book that I couldn't write after boxing because I didn't care enough. Boxing settled my mind enough that I was like, if this book doesn't get written, it will still be okay.
Wow.
And so I needed to write in the morning when I still had tons of anxiety. And then after boxing, I would just come back and watch TV or, eat, relax, chill out. But that's, I I wish I was a personal trainer just so I could insist that every guy who came to me did yoga and meditation, and every woman who came to me did boxing or combat sports.
Do you know there's an actual relationship between yoga and meditation?
Well, yeah, I mean, all the warrior monks and
it was invented. Yoga was invented for meditation. It was so the yogis
Right.
could sit in meditation for hours, days at a time without their bodies cramping up. And so it's I mean, there's something to that movement and breathing and all that hippie shit that I used to make fun of all the time. And it's like, fuck, there really is something to this.
Dude, I am becoming more and more of a hippie as I get older, and I hate it.
I know, man.
So much.
But see, that's why I will never. Well, I should never say never, right?
Yeah, I thought you're setting yourself up.
But
too.
why I'm reticent at this point in my life to give up saying fuck and to give up letting my Buddhism go when there's hockey on TV, and being willing to be attached to the New York Rangers, and being willing to just, wear a flat brimmed hat at 46 years old when even some of my friends go, what the fuck's wrong with you, man? Why don't you grow up a little bit? I'm like, no, I'm okay where I am right here.
Well, I think if you dive deeper into, you've got to read Ikkyu. Crow with No Mouth. He was a 15th century Japanese Zen poet, and he writes about prostitutes and drunkenness and anger and rage and regret. And I think there is a sort of pop culture representation of Buddhists as or sort of evolved Buddhists as people who are at peace all the time, and I think the reality is far from that. And I think that the greatest Buddhist teachers were human beings, and that they were subject to lust, rage, envy, all the other.
And they were warriors in some cases.
Absolutely.
I had that conversation with Rich the other day, because I was telling him I sometimes that's the project that's rattling around in my brain that I'm trying to reconcile for me, is this letting go, this constant process of letting go that brings so much happiness to my life and makes me, feel like I can walk into chaos and be, calm, and I'm not frustrated. I don't get frustrated, man. I don't have bad days. I don't get mad at people. None of that stuff exists in my life. And trying to reconcile that guy, which I'll call the monk, right, with the warrior that goes, I'm going to run fucking 135 miles across Death Valley and battle against the demons in my head and the blisters on my feet and the hallucinations and everything, because they're connected. It's warrior monk, not warrior and monk, but I'm not sure exactly how that works. Yeah. And it brings me to this kind of like parable thing where the father and the son are training every morning, and, they're hand-to-hand combat and stuff like that. And the son says, Father, why do we train every day? We're gardeners. And the father says, it is better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener at war. And I like that just speaks to me. It speaks to me. So I don't know. There's a lot of that in the book that I've been writing right now that I was doing so well on and haven't written a damn word in for like a month now.
Hey, rest and recovery is important regardless of what you're doing.
Yeah.
The time you spend not writing is often as invaluable as the time you spend writing.
Yeah.
One of the things that I always talk about when I'm talking to my students at Yale, the workshop just opened. There'll be a link somewhere in the podcast.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll put it all out there.
Is the concept of discretion. And if you look at the Latin root to that, it's excretia. So anti-shit. So basically...
No shit.
Yeah.
Sort of joke.
So basically, the discretion is the ability to tell shit from food, which speaks both to my experience of being like, no, Twizzlers are shit. That's not food. And also the interrogation of the inventory that you and I subject ourselves to on a daily basis of what's serving me and what am I serving?
Right.
That kind of thing. And I think you'll find that it the warrior monk thing, it's a sliding ratio that some days you need more of this guy and other days you need more of this guy, but you need both of those guys.
I believe that maybe nirvana is like always when you need the warrior to be at, 51-49.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's that's the perfect spot. So that reminds me of something I said one time. It's okay to bite the hand that feeds you shit.
That's great.
So you're in town to do some stuff, man. What's going on with that? You're
Oh yeah, I have a ton of shows. Still, I did played at Boulder Beer Garden, which is interesting. It's funny being in Colorado at a beer garden serving Rubens and not eating meat, not drinking beer, not smoking weed. It's like, man, I'm in the worst possible place. I had a blast. The shows there are killer. I have a show tonight at Finkel and Garf in Boulder. I'm tomorrow night and Thursday. I'm at Mutiny Information Cafe.
and unfortunately, this pod won't be in time for that. Sorry, guys.
But yeah, I'm doing a bunch of bunch of local Colorado shows, Laramie, Wyoming, then back to Atlanta for 10 days, and then back out on a tour from Atlanta, working my way over to Austin, and then back to Atlanta.
So what for you, man? Like how does all this stuff reconcile it? Because you're like, I have to remind myself all the time that I can be anything I want, but I can't be everything I want. You know what I mean? I feel that pull. I feel it, and I am by no stretch mastered that concept. But it seems like you do a lot of different things that take up a lot of time.
Yeah. I feel like I'm in a flawed state right now because I haven't really committed to this or committed to that. And I'm sort of trying to, when I was a little kid, we were like fooling around with matches and accidentally set this field on fire, and then we had to go and put it out. And one of the things I found out then, there were a couple of different little fires, and I found out then that you can't mostly put a fire out and then move on to the next one. You have to put it out completely.
Wow.
You have to finish that job before you move on to the next one. So right now I'm like working on building up another like comedy set for another live record. I just finished a record called When We Were Animals that'll be coming out in May. I'm getting ready I'll be announcing another. I have the tour I mentioned from Atlanta to Austin and back. I'm doing a West Coast run in March with Michael Dean Dameron, one of the best songwriters I've ever met, and then going over to Europe for a month in May on tour, teaching at Yale in June. Through this whole time, I'll be trying to eat right and trying to, maintain the health of my back and trying to keep my running up. And so I'll be honest that I'm in a spot right now where I don't really know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I know, the one constant is I'm not going to drink.
Right.
And I'm going to try. I'm going to try whatever I'm going to do. I'm going to try my hardest at it. I'm going to try my hardest to do it, to write songs, to tell jokes, I'm being pulled in a lot of different directions right now. And I feel like there might be a lesson scheduled for me at some point this year of just trying to juggle too many plates and they're all going to drop.
Right.
But we'll see. I've balanced it before,
Trying to figure out the art of saying no, right? Like there's something there.
I have a conflicted relationship with touring right now where I don't know what to do with myself.
What is it giving you?
So
what do you think?
Right now, the best I ever...
All that money. It's about the ends.
That pocket full of greasy nickels. Yeah. When I don't know what to do with myself, I tour. I go on the road. And the best I ever feel is in the morning after I've gassed up the van and filled up my coffee and I'm pulling onto the highway, accelerating. It doesn't matter what I'm leaving behind or what I'm going to that night, just the sensation of leaving. It's like the dog hopping in the pickup truck with you. Like, where are we going? Like, the dog doesn't care. We're going somewhere. Right. And so I'm hooked on that sensation of going somewhere. On the one hand, the world's not going to give a shit if I stop touring. I don't, there's not like hordes of screaming fans at every, destination. On the other hand, I'm the youngest now I will ever be. Rock and roll is it's not an old man's game. It's a young man's game, and it's sort of like make hay while the sun shines. Like, do it now while I still can. And things have gotten, better and better for me. I have a great booking agent in the UK now. Like I had 120 people singing my songs back to me when I was in London.
Wow. I saw some of that video, actually. What a trip, man.
It's a cool feeling, man. It's just like, it's such a trip. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm in the driver's seat anymore or if I'm in the passenger seat. I can't really tell. And it seems to sort of go back and forth,
Wow.
But we'll see. I'm going to wait and see how it turns out.
Sounds like you're a similar place to when I was standing on top of Hope Pass, wondering what I was searching for.
Yeah.
Interesting. Anything else we need to cover, man? We've been going a couple hours.
No, I just want to say
we could keep doing this forever.
Yeah, no, I know. Well, no, let's wrap it up. I just want to say this. I love you so much, man. I value so much the differences that we have. There's a lot of things that we it's the same coin that we see different sides of, and I love you a ton. I'm so grateful for the dialogue that we have, for the friendship that we have, for the support I've gotten from you, and like, let's just keep rolling, man.
Me too, brother. No, totally. Like our friendship and the emotions that I have for you belie how much time we've actually spent.
A couple hours in total, right?
This is the record right now.
Yeah,
this is the benchmark.
I know. This is the longest
2 hours.
Yeah.
But it won't be the last.
Absolutely.
It won't be the last. And I think I have to check with Courtney. I know she had some yoga thing tonight, but I think we're going to try to come up and catch you.
Awesome.
Up because you're in Boulder, right?
Yeah.
What time do you go on?
Tonight?
9?
I hit at 9.
Perfect.
Awesome.
Love you, brother.
I love you.
All right, man.
Later.